Hey there, everybody. Happy Monday. We're back, and today we've got an all-new preview of All-American for you guys, and today we're talking about something that all of us are curious about at this given moment. What is the status of Spencer and Olivia's relationship? And depending on how things may be, what's their timetable, if you will, in terms of how long before we get an opportunity to see them get back to being comfortable with one another, and reconnect, So, all right, without any further ado, let's hop into this because there's definitely some things we've got to cover, and let's just hope for the best here with everything we go over here. So, first of all, as we know, we haven't really gotten a chance to see any moments regarding their relationship over these past couple of episodes. We have seen a couple of moments between them wherein the talking point is bigger than just what might be next for them, But the thing for me is that could those conversations indicate that things are going well, or do you think we could see a scenario wherein they've once again been avoiding each other? And, the thing for me is that I wouldn't be surprised if we were to hear something like that, because I think if they were still on good terms and something had happened, then we would have heard about it. But just let me know what you guys think, and I'll try my best to get back to you as always. So, obviously, in this situation, you hope that things are still good. But again, I wouldn't be too surprised if we were to find out that they've been cutting off contact again or something like that. Or who knows, maybe the writers are hiding something from us that we don't have any knowledge of. And I could be wrong, but, I definitely, like I said, I could be wrong. But it'd be something to consider, I just based on everything that's happened this season, So, all right, moving on now. Let's kind of start to break down the little moments we've seen between the two of them over these last couple of episodes and why I think, I should say, and then I'll kind of start to explain why I think that could indicate that things are going well or not, So, without any further ado, first of all, we saw in episode 10 at the hospital that they momentarily hugged, and they talked briefly about how Spencer will have her back in terms of Laura finding out about Jordan and Simone's marriage and, their knowledge of it. But other than that, we didn't really see anything from them in that episode. It was kind of disappointing to see, to say the least. But, obviously in that moment, Spencer really kind of needed a break from all that stuff. And that episode was more football based, So, anyways, moving on now, we did see a little bit more from them in episode 11, but despite that, I feel like we never really see them talk about where they stand, which of course would make this particular topic that we're talking about here today a lot easier. But anyways, we saw them run into each other when Liv was having coffee with Nurse Joy at the Hangout, and Nurse Joy, as you can imagine, sort of barged in on the conversation, and of course, she didn't know the circumstances between them at the time, and, maybe if she had, maybe it would have gone differently in my eyes, but anyways, they talked about Jordan, essentially, and that's pretty much all we heard, but, later on in the episode, we saw them at Tamika's vigil, and that's when we saw them talk about Tamika's and her own situation with the cops, and this was definitely a powerful scene, but in terms of their relationship and where they stand, we don't really hear anything. So, it was, you hope things are good because at least they're talking to one another, even though it's not what we might hope they're talking about, but I hope, like I said, hopefully this is an indication that things are going pretty well. So, we'll get into that a little more here later on. So, now that we've kind of talked about the moments we've witnessed between them in these last couple of episodes, let's get into why I think they could indicate whether things are going well or not, or, if they could be at a point where they're not speaking, So, first of all, let's start with the hug at the hospital. Now, obviously, this doesn't really indicate much, but it could still be a sign that things are going fine, and now we know that they're there because of Jordan, and I think the fact that Spencer comes to the hospital outside of the fact that he's concerned for Jordan might have something to do with being there for Olivia, as she prays for her brother. But, Going back to the hug, it doesn't really say much because after all, they're in a hospital and they're worried about someone, of course they're going to hug. But the thing for me is that I don't really think Spencer would have hugged just anybody. I'm sure he was glad to have a chance to embrace Liv after what they've been through, and that kind of speaks to their love for one another, obviously, but I think this scenario either means that this is their way of getting over what they've been through together, or it means that they're still in a good place despite what happened, and this is them continuing to show that. It's definitely interesting, but, for me, out of those two possibilities I mentioned, I kind of think that's their way of them already being in a good place despite what happened and showing us that's the case. Let me know what you guys think, though. It's definitely interesting, and of course, the thing about both of the possibilities that I mentioned there are that they're both good. It's just a matter of whether they're making up now or whether they have already made up. So, again, just let me know what you guys think, and I'll try my best to get back to you as always. So, all in all, I'm pretty happy with that scenario. Either way, it's good. Have they already made up, or is this their way of making up? So, just let me know what you guys think. So, okay, next we'll get into the scene wherein we see Spencer tell Olivia he'll have her back, when it comes to knowing about Jordan and Simone's marriage. And for me, this was good to see from Spence because, first of all, this was the first and only time they talked in this episode. But anyways, it was good to see this because at least they're still there for one another, and while this might not indicate that things are well in their relationship, it's definitely kind of a step in the right direction for me personally. But all in all, that's about all I've got for that. Let me know if you guys think this indicates whether or not that their relationship is going well, and if so, why? As always, I'll try my best to get back to you. So it's definitely interesting. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. So, without any further ado, let's get into episode 11. And for me, I think that their scenes from this episode will give us a little more insight on how they're actually doing, simply because it was just a more recent episode. So let's hop into it. We'll start with the scene at the Hangout wherein we see Olivia having coffee with Nurse Joy, and then Spencer approaches. Now, of course, there's definitely some tension between the two, which I feel like lets us know that there's obviously still something there. I don't know if it tells us whether or not things are good or bad between them. But anyways, then Nurse Joy jumps in on the moment, and afterwards is when we see Spencer ask Liv about Jordan. And like I said before, that's all they talk about in this scene, but I think this does indicate that things are going well between them at the moment, and they know that they can still reconnect and be with one another. And the way Olivia looks at Spencer after he walks away is just proof. Kind of like it's almost like they've still got it in a sense. So in that scene, I was feeling pretty good about where they stand, and I'm thinking it's only a matter of time before they reconnect. So with that thought, let's kind of get into the next scene, just to kind of talk about where they stand right now, because this was kind of the last scene that we saw them talk to each other in that last episode. So again, we're on to the kind of the final moment we've got in terms of breaking it all down and what it may mean for their relationship and where they stand at this moment. So without any further ado, the final moment we witnessed that we'll be going over is the scene we saw at Tamika's vigil, wherein we saw Olivia comparing herself to Tamika's situation and the fact that she could have been her if she hadn't been the white DA's daughter. And now obviously this scene is very powerful in a way, as we mentioned before, and in this scene we mostly just saw Spencer and Olivia talking about a topic that's bigger than just where they stand. And the thing for me is that what Spencer said to her in terms of it not being Olivia's fault that she's still alive and Tamika isn't, I agree with him, because Olivia couldn't have done anything about the cops treating Tamika as just another black life. And I also agree, because what happened to Olivia is what should have happened in a world where injustice isn't a factor and it doesn't matter when it comes to the color of your skin. But moving on, in terms of Olivia's response, and I think it might indicate how things are going now in their relationship. She says that Tamika isn't alive to fight for her own justice, but she is, and, that she owes it to her to fight for her. You know, the conversation ends after that. So basically, in terms of where their relationship stands, given the fact that that's the last interaction we've seen between them, I do think things are still going fine between them. I just feel like, based on the tone of this conversation and the way Olivia walked away, it might seem as if it may be a while before we see anything develop between them again. But the thing is that I still think things are going fine between them because they never really talked about where they stand. And given how I think things were before this conversation, I don't think this interaction did anything to change that, but, let me know what you guys think and I'll try my best to get back to you. So, all in all, that just about covers where I believe they stand. And again, just let me know what you guys think about where they stand, and let's just have a civil discussion as always. And of course, if you do think they're in a situation wherein things aren't great, and they're not talking to each other, let me know if you think they can get things back to a point where they can reconnect. So I'm always interested in hearing your guys' opinions. Let's just keep it civil in the comments as always. So, all right, and with that thought, I think we've just about reached the point in this episode where I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, feel free to just go for it in terms of anything we talked about here today regarding Spencer and Olivia's relationship. And, let's just keep it civil as always. So, also, feel free to like and share this video. And subscribe to the channel while you're at it. I really appreciate it if you haven't already. And remember, anybody that enjoys All American will enjoy this channel. I can guarantee it. So, let your friends know, let your family know, and let's keep this squad rolling. So, also feel free to let me know if you guys thought I may have missed anything, and I may make another video for it. Or if there's just anything you may want to see from me in general, just feel free to let me know. I'm always interested in hearing what you guys may want to see so that we can have some nice discussions about it, So, also feel free to check out my Instagram page. The link is in the description, where I generally try to update you guys whenever we'll have a new video dropping, as well as if we may experience any delays or cancellations. So, again, feel free to check that out. And with that thought, as always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I voice your opinions, all that stuff. Like, subscribe, share this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.